War isn't just about bullets and battlefields, it's about the scars that last, the lies we believe, and the truths we can't handle. The Vietnam War didn't just change America, it changed cinema forever. Which movies captured that chaos best? Which films didn't just show a war but made you feel like you survived it? Buckle up, some of these picks will take you places you might never want to return from. Apocalypse Now, 1979. There's War Movie, and then there's Apocalypse Now, a trip so wild and hallucinatory, you might question if you're actually watching a film or living a fever dream. Francis Ford Coppola didn't just want to show Vietnam. He wanted to drag you, kicking and screaming, into the burning, swirling heart of madness. From the first blast of The Doors' The End, to the orange fire of napalm and the thudding helicopter blades, every moment is soaked in heat, sweat, and creeping dread. Martin Sheen's Captain Willard is sent upriver on a mission that sounds simple. Find Marlon Brando's Colonel Kurtz, a decorated officer who's gone completely rogue and set up his own fiefdom in the jungle. But let's be honest, by the halfway point, it's not just Kurtz who's losing his grip. Sheen had a real-life breakdown during filming. Coppola went wildly over budget, and the whole production seemed cursed. That chaos bleeds onto the screen. This isn't just a movie about losing your mind. It's a movie made by people dangling on the edge. Apocalypse Now isn't about heroes and villains, good guys or bad guys. It's about what happens when war tears away your last layer of sanity and makes you confront the darkness inside. The jungle feels like a living, breathing character, indifferent, untamable, and absolutely unforgiving. By the end, you come away changed, just like Willard, just like everyone who sat down in a dark theater in 1979 and came out stunned. This isn't just the gold standard for Vietnam films, it's the nightmare you can't shake, and the masterpiece that dares you to stare straight into the abyss. Platoon 1986. What happens when the kid next door gets shipped off to hell? Platoon answers that question with gut-punch honesty and an edge sharper than a bayonet. Directed by Oliver Stone, a man who actually served in Vietnam, this film doesn't pull any punches or offer easy heroes. Instead, it drops you right into the jungle, sweat-soaked and terrified, where the biggest danger isn't just the enemy, but the guy standing next to you. Charlie Sheen plays Chris Taylor, a young recruit who quickly learns that survival has as much to do with politics and personality as it does with firepower. The squad splits between two sergeants, Elias, the soulful vet played by Willem Dafoe, and Barnes, a brutal survivor with a face scarred by violence and a soul to match. Watching them clash is like watching two sides of America's soul wrestle in the mud. Platoon's strength is its brutal realism. Mud, mosquitoes, and friendly fire aren't just props, they're part of the agony, stone crams and stories pulled straight from his own foxhole memories, making every firefight, every betrayal feel too real for comfort. By the end, you're not rooting for anyone, you're just praying for somebody to make it out with their humanity intact. This wasn't the first Vietnam movie, but it was the first that truly felt like a confession, an apology, an accusation, and a warning all in one. If you want the truth, Platoon says, you'd better be ready for it to hurt. Full Metal Jacket 1987. Welcome to the machine. Stanley Kubrick's Full Metal Jacket isn't content with just blowing up the jungle. It wants to blow up your whole idea of what makes a soldier. It starts with a head-shaving boot camp so intense you can practically feel your hair being yanked out, and ends in the ruins of a burned-out city where innocence goes to die. The first half belongs to R. Lee Ermey as Gunnery Sergeant Hartman, a drill instructor who turns fresh-faced recruits into hard-eyed killers with insults so creative you almost have to laugh. Vincent D'Onofrio's Private Pile is the tragic centerpiece, a lost kid who can't handle the transformation and cracks under the pressure. Watching his downfall is like watching a slow-motion train wreck, and you can't look away. Then it's off to Vietnam, where Matthew Modine's Private Joker trades one hell for another. The film's second half is all chaos and confusion, snipers, street fighting, and that chilling 1,000-yard stare. Kubrick doesn't give you answers, just more questions. What does it mean to be born to kill and love at the same time? Where's the line between sanity and madness? Full Metal Jacket is cold, clinical, and sometimes weirdly funny, a horror show with a punchline. It's not just about Vietnam, it's about how the war gets inside your head and never lets go. By the time the credits roll, you'll feel like you've been drafted too. The Deer Hunter 1978. Some movies show you war. The Deer Hunter makes you live with it, dragging you through every echo of gunfire, every silent loss, long after the credits roll. Michael Cimino's epic doesn't just give you a front-row seat to battle, it throws you into the hearts and homes of a tight-knit group of friends from a blue-collar Pennsylvania steel town. It opens with wedding bells, laughter, and the sense of a community bound together by hard work and shared dreams. Then, just like real life, everything shatters. Robert De Niro, Christopher Walken, and John Savage star as three best friends who head off to Vietnam full of duty and hope, only to be plunged into a nightmare that no one back home could ever imagine. Captured by enemy forces, they're forced into the movie's most infamous sequence, a deadly game of Russian roulette, where survival comes down to a single, terrifying pull of the trigger. That spinning cylinder isn't just a plot device, it's a chilling metaphor for the randomness of fate and the mental Russian roulette every soldier plays, both at war and after coming home. What makes The Deer Hunter unforgettable isn't just the horror. Cimino pulls you through every stage of grief, hope, loss, denial, and the small, agonizing steps of trying to rebuild. The haunting wedding and hunting scenes are more than just filler. They're a painful reminder of innocence lost and lives forever changed. Walken's Oscar-winning turn as a man broken by what he's seen is devastating, but it's De Niro's silent pain that lingers. This isn't a film for adrenaline junkies or glory hounds. The Deer Hunter is a meditation on trauma, brotherhood, and the wounds no metal can heal. If you've ever wondered what's left after the war, this movie leaves you with the answer, and it's not easy to swallow. Born on the 4th of July, 1989, how do you turn patriotism into protest? Born on the 4th of July grabs that question with both hands and refuses to let go, shoving the answer straight in your face. Forget everything you learned about heroes in civics class. Oliver Stone's blistering adaptation of Ron Kovich's memoir tears up the flag-waving script and drags you into a story where the real battles begin after the shooting stops. Tom Cruise is almost unrecognizable here, ditching his Hollywood heartthrob status to become Kovich, a true believer who signs up to serve, gets cheered through parades, and comes home in a wheelchair, betrayed, broken, and burning with questions. His transformation is jaw-dropping, taking you from gung-ho teenager to a man trapped by regret, rage, and a sense of abandonment. You feel every wound, every heartbreak, every betrayal. When Cruise screams and sobs and fights through hospital hell, you realize this isn't just a performance. He's living it, and so are you. The film doesn't flinch from the ugly side of patriotism. It shows families torn apart, friends lost, and the slow realization that sometimes the biggest enemy is the system that sent you off to fight. You get a front-row seat to anti-war protests, government indifference, and the long, painful climb to activism. Healing, if it ever comes, is messy and incomplete. Born on the 4th of July is a wake-up call, loud, relentless, and impossible to ignore. It's a reminder that the Vietnam War isn't just history, it's a wound that still throbs. If you want easy answers or feel-good patriotism, look elsewhere. If you want the truth, buckle up. This movie delivers it with every raw, rattling frame. Good morning, Vietnam 1987. If you think war movies have to be all mud, blood, and misery, you haven't met Robin Williams as Adrian Cronauer. Good morning. Vietnam rips up the rulebook and delivers chaos with a smile, crackling energy, and jokes that land like artillery shells. Williams's performance isn't just funny, it's electric. He turns a radio DJ's gig into guerrilla theater, making bored GIs laugh so hard they forget for a second that bombs are dropping outside. But don't let the humor fool you. This movie doesn't dodge the darkness. Williams Cronauer arrives in Saigon ready to entertain, but soon he's butting heads with the brass, shaking up the status quo and broadcasting messages nobody in charge wants out there. Beneath the jokes, there's a sharp bite, a reminder that sometimes the best way to fight despair is to fight for the truth, even if it's disguised as a comedy bit. Director Barry Levinson cleverly balances Williams' wild improvisation with moments of heartbreak, racism, and the shattering cost of war. The soundtrack alone could give you whiplash, jumping from Louis Armstrong to the Beach Boys, matching the film's mood swings. When tragedy strikes, the film yanks away the laughter and makes you face the reality head-on. Good morning. Vietnam proves you can tell a Vietnam story with both tears and belly laughs. It's a film about finding humanity in hell, and sometimes the only weapon you have is a joke. Is it the most realistic Vietnam movie? Maybe not. Is it one of the most memorable? No question. We Were Soldiers 2002. If you want to understand the chaos and courage of the first major American battle in Vietnam, We Were Soldiers throws you straight into the inferno with no apologies and no filters. Forget the Hollywood fantasy of the untouchable American soldier. This movie is about real people, real fear, and real sacrifice. Mel Gibson leads the charge as Lieutenant Colonel Hal Moore, a man who refuses to leave any soldier behind, even when the odds are stacked higher than the bodies. Based on Moore's own memoirs, the story dives into the Battle of Ia Drang in 1965, where a fresh American battalion is dropped into a valley surrounded by thousands of determined North Vietnamese fighters. The result? Absolute chaos. From the first moment the choppers touch down, you feel the tension ratchet up. There's no slow build, just instant fire. Bullets rain, friends fall, and Moore is everywhere at once, leading from the front and comforting the wounded. But this isn't just another war movie about explosions and gunfire. Director Randall Wallace keeps pulling you back to the home front, where wives wait by the phone for news they're dreading. The film gives dignity to every player, American and Vietnamese alike, showing the shared horror and heartbreak on both sides. No faceless villains, no easy answers, just humans caught in a storm nobody controls. Gibson gives one of his most controlled performances, balancing toughness with empathy, grief with resolve. By the end, you're left wrung out, moved, and for once, a little proud of the men and women who endured this nightmare. We Were Soldiers isn't here to glorify battle. It's here to show the pain, the courage, and the stubborn humanity that somehow survives even the worst days in hell. Hamburger Hill, 1987. Some battles aren't about territory. They're about surviving another day. Hamburger Hill captures that ugly truth better than any other Vietnam film. You won't find big movie stars or grand speeches here. Instead, you get a ragtag group of soldiers who become brothers one minute and strangers the next, all trying to take a muddy, nameless hill that barely matters to anyone except the guys dying on it. Set during the infamous 1969 assault on Hill 937, the film pulls no punches. The fight for Hamburger Hill was a real-life nightmare, a mission so brutal that soldiers started calling the place Meat Grinder. Every climb up that slippery slope ends with more blood, more bodies, and less reason to keep going. Director John Irvin makes sure you feel every inch of mud and misery. What sets Hamburger Hill apart isn't just the relentless combat. It's the way it shows the soldiers' frustration, confusion, and dark humor. There are no clear villains, no grand strategies, just the chaos of orders coming down from on high and young men trying to stay alive. When someone falls, the squad barely has time to mourn before moving on. You might not remember every name, but you'll remember the sense of exhaustion, the random acts of kindness, and the numbness that settles in by the final frame. Hamburger Hill is the Vietnam War at its most honest, grinding, pointless, and unforgettable. Casualties of War, 1989. War doesn't just break bodies, it can shatter morality in ways no battlefield surgeon can ever fix. Casualties of War is one of those films that refuses to let you look away, even when you desperately want to. Brian De Palma drags a real-life story out of the shadows and throws it under a harsh spotlight, daring you to confront the kinds of choices and betrayals that never make it into war memorial speeches. This isn't the Vietnam War you'll find in history class. It's not about famous battles or big strategies. It's about what happens when the rules fall apart and human decency is put on trial. Michael J. Fox takes a sharp left turn from his clean-cut roles to play Private Erickson, a young soldier who sees his own squad do the unthinkable. Instead of turning away, Erickson risks everything to stand up to his so-called brothers-in-arms. That question, what would I have done, hangs heavy in every scene. Sean Penn delivers a menacing, unforgettable performance as the hardened sergeant whose moral compass spun out long ago. The violence here isn't choreographed for thrills. It's ugly, desperate, and leaves you squirming in your seat. De Palma ratchets up the tension, making sure there's no easy comfort or redemption. By the time the credits roll, you're rattled, angry, and maybe even a little haunted by how quickly right and wrong can blur under pressure. Casualties of War is not popcorn entertainment. It's a challenge. It's the film that forces you to admit that sometimes the greatest dangers aren't outside the wire, they're standing right next to you. Sometimes the most important stories are the hardest to watch, and this one is unforgettable for exactly that reason. Rescue Dawn 2006. Think survival movies are just about hiking, eating bugs, and hoping for a helicopter rescue? Rescue Dawn blasts that cliché to pieces. This film hurls you headfirst into the humid, crawling jungle, where even the air feels like an enemy and every sunrise is a victory. Werner Herzog, the master of stories about men pushed past their limits, adapts the real-life tale of Dieter Dengler, a German-born U.S. Navy pilot who crash-landed in Laos during the early days of the Vietnam War. Christian Bale vanishes into Dengler's skin, playing him as a guy who flat-out refuses to quit, even as everything, including nature itself, tries to beat him down. After being captured, Dengler is thrown into a ramshackle prison camp run by guards who are equal parts bored and brutal. There's no easy escape, no handy heroics. Every day is a grind of hunger, thirst, and dodging betrayal. Bale's sunken cheeks and raw determination make it all feel achingly real. Herzog does what he does best, strips away every comfort, every crutch, until only willpower and stubborn hope remain. Bale famously ate real maggots and lost dozens of pounds to sell Dengler's slow physical and mental deterioration. Yet, through it all, hope never dies. The jungle is relentless, the obstacles are endless, and the odds are a joke, but Dengler keeps going. Rescue Dawn isn't here to make war look thrilling. It's a brutal meditation on human grit, courage, and the refusal to let go, no matter how bad the odds get. When Dengler finally bursts out into the open, gasping at freedom, you'll feel the victory in your bones. Sometimes the greatest war stories aren't about winning battles. They're about not giving up on life itself. So, which Vietnam War movie shook you the hardest? Did one of these classics change the way you see war, or is there a hidden gem we missed? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's get the debate started. And if you're hungry for more movie deep dives, hit subscribe, share this with a fellow film buff, and keep questioning the stories history dares us to remember. What will you watch next?